with the book H is for Homicide. Yesterday we went to the page 15, so today it's 16. Thanks. We can have dinner afterward. My treat. I don't want a quarter pounder with cheese, she said. I waved at her dismissively and headed towards the door. See you in the morning. You want to let me out? Hang on a minute, and I'll go too. Why don't you go ahead and pick up the keys I tried to give you Friday? It's in the file in my outbox. The woman's name is Bibiana Diaz. If you can nail her, maybe all of us will end up looking good. I detoured into the glass cubicle she now occupied as claims manager, spotting the Diaz file, which was right on top. Got it, I called. You can talk to Mary Bellflower once you've had a chance to review it. It was Parnell's to begin with, but she's the one who flagged it. I thought the cops took all his files. This wasn't in with the files on his desk. He'd given it to Mary the month before, so the cops never saw it. She emerged with her photocopies clamped between her teeth while she fished out her car keys. I'll see if there's a way to check the woman out before I talk to Mary. At least I can get the lay of the land that way first, I said. Suit yourself. You can work it out any way you want. Farah flipped the light off and let us out of the office, locking the door behind her. If you have any question, I'll be home by 10. We left the building together, chatting idly as we trotted down the stairs. We were the only two cars in the lot, parked side by side. One more thing, she said as she unlocked her car door. Titus has asked to see you first thing in the morning. I stared at her across the top of her car. Why me? I don't work for him. Who knows? Maybe he sees you as an important part of the team. He talks like that. All this rah horse bucky. It's obnoxious. She opened the door and slid into the driver's seat, rolling the window down on the passenger side. Take care. You too. I let myself into my car. My stomach already churning. I didn't want to see Gordon Titus at all, let alone tomorrow morning. What a way to start the week. The parking lot was empty and the downtown was quiet. We pulled out at the same time, turning in opposite directions. All the stores were closed, but the lights along State Street and the smattering of pedestrians gave the illusion of activity in the otherwise deserted business district. Santa Teresa is a town where you can still window shop after hours without too much fear of attack. During tourist season, the street was swarmed with people, and even in the off months, there's benign air about the place. I was tempted to grab some supper in one of the little restaurants in the area, but I couldn't hear a peanut butter and pickle sandwich calling me from home. The neighborhood was fully dark by the time I parked the car and entered my gate. Henry's kitchen light was on, but I resisted the temptation to pop in to see him. He'd want to feed me dinner, play me with decent was it a Cardinane, and catch me up on all the latest gossip. At the age of 82, he's a retired commercial banker. involved now in a catering tea parties for little old ladies on our block. As a sideline, he write those little crossword puzzle booklet you see in supermarket checkout line, filled with buns, bon mots, and spoonerisms. When he's not doing that, he's usually cheating me out about my personal life, which he thinks it's not only dangerous but too uncivilized. I let myself into my apartment and flip on one of the table lamps. I drop my handbag on the counter that separate my kitchenette from the designated living room. The place had been completely redone after a bomb blast had flattened it. I'd stayed with Henry until the construction was finished, moving back into the apartment on my birthday the previous May. And what a gift it was! Like a pirate ship, all taken brass fitting. The porthole in the door, a spiral staircase leading up to a loft where I could sleep now beneath a skylight salted with stars. My bed was a platform with drawers built into the base. Downstairs, I had a galley for a kitchen, an alcove for a stacking washer or dryer, a living room with a sofa that doubled for company, and a small guest bath. Upstairs, a second bathroom had a sunken tub with a juggle of houseplants on the window sill and a glimpse of the ocean through the treetops. The entire apartment was fitted with little nooks and crannies of storage space, cupboard and hidey holes, bag for my clothes. The design was all Henry's, and he'd taken a devilish satisfaction out of shaping my surroundings. The carpet was royal blue, the furnishings simple. Even after 6 months, I walked around the place as if blind, touching everything, marveling at the feel of it, the scent of the wood. After my parents died, I'd been raised by a maiden aunt, a woman whose relationship with me entailed more theory than affection. Without ever actually saying so, she conveyed the impression that I was there on approval, like a mattress, subject to return if the lumps didn't smooth out. To give her the credit, her notion of child raising, if eccentric were sound, and what she taught me in the way of worldly truth has served me well. Still, for most of my life, I felt like an intruder and a transient, merrily marking time until I was asked to move on. Now my interior world had undergone a shift. This was home, and I belonged here. While the apartment was rented, I was a tenant for life. The sensation was strange, and I still didn't quite trust it. I turned on my little black and white TV, letting the sound keep me company while I pottered around, making supper. I sat at the counter, perched on a bar stool, munching on my sandwich as I lived through the file Farad given me. There were copies of the initial claim, a single car accident with personal injuries, a sheaf of medical bills, some correspondence, and an attached summary of the salient point. The adjuster, Mary Bellflower, had flagged the claim for a variety of reasons. The injury itself was soft tissue and subjective, impossible to verify. Miss Diaz was complaining of whiplash, headache, dizziness, lower back pain, and muscle spasm, among other things. The repairs to the car were estimated at $1,500 with additional medical bills. All third generation photocopies, which would permit a bit of tampering with the figures, totaling $2,500. She was also claiming $1,200 in lost wages, for a total of $5,200. There were no police report from the accident scene, and the adjuster was astute enough to pick up on the fact that the collision had occurred shortly after Miss Diaz's vehicle had been registered and insured. Also, questionable was the fact that the claimant was using a post office box as an address. Mary had ferreted out an actual street address, which she'd included in her notes. I noticed she'd been careful to retain copies of the envelopes showing date stamped, in which the claim form had been returned. If charges were filed, this would provide evidence that the U.S. mail had been used, thus opening the matter to federal investigation under mail fraud statute. In fraudulent cases, the claimant will often hire an attorney whose job it is to stick the screw to the claim's representative, pressuring for a quick settlement. Miss Diaz hadn't yet engaged the service of an attorney, but she was being pushy about reimbursement. I couldn't imagine why Parnell had turned the case over to Mary Bellflower. On a case this size, the temptation is to approve payment fairly quick to avoid any suggestion of bad faith on the part of the insurance company. However, because California Fidelity had recently chalked up such a big loss, McLean Voorhees, the company's vice president, was taking a dim view of rubber stamping. Thus, the matter had been referred to me for follow up. With Titus on the scene, it might turn out to be too little too late, but that's where matters stood. It was then when I finally turned the light out and went up to bed. I opened one of the windows and leaned my head against the frame, letting the cold air wash across my face. The moon was up, the night sky was clear, and the stars were as piercing as pinpricks. A weak storm front was moving in. A weak storm front was moving in, and a chance of showers was being predicted sometimes in the next couple of days. So far, there was no sign of rain. I could hear the muffled tumble of the surf a block away. I crawled under the covers, opened the clock radio, staring up at the skylight. A country song began to play. Willie Nelson is a wistful account of pain and suffering. Where's Robert Dietz tonight? I asked myself. I'd hired myself a private investigator the previous May when my name showed up as one of the four finalists on somebody's hit list. I'd needed a bodyguard, and Dietz turned out to be it. Once the situation was diffused, he'd stayed on for 3 months. He'd been gone now for two. We were neither we were neither of us letter writers and too cheap to call each other often since he'd left for Germany. His departure was wrenching, the banal and the bittersweet mingling in about equal parts. I'm not good at goodbyes, I'd said the night before he left. I'm not good at an- I'm not good at anything else. He'd replied with that crooked smile of his. I didn't think his pain was any match of mine. I might have been wrong. Of course, Dietz was not the sort of man given to unrestrained expression of anguish and distress, which is not to say such feeling didn't exist for him. The hard part about love is the hole it leaves when it's gone, which is the substance of every country and western song you ever heard. The next I knew, it was 6 a.m., and my alarm was peeping like a little bird. I rolled out of bed and grabbed my running clothes, pulling on sweatpants, sweatshirts, crew socks, and Adidas. I paused to brush my teeth and then headed down the spiral stairs to my front door. The sun hadn't risen yet, but the darkness had eased up to a charcoal haze. The morning air was damp and smelled of eucalyptus. I clung to the front gate and did a couple of stretches, more form than content, using the walkover to Cabana Boulevard as a way of warming up to some extent. Sometimes I wonder why I continue to exercise with such diligence. Paranoia, perhaps? The recollection of the time when I had to run for my life. When I reached the bike path, I broke into an awkward trot. My legs felt like a wood, and my breathing was choppy. The first mile always hurts. Anything after that is a snap by comparison. I shut my mind off and tuned into my surrounding. To the right of me, the ocean was pounding at the beach, a mute thunder, as restful as the sound of rain. Seagulls were screeching as they went above the surf. The Pacific was the color of liquid steel, the waves a foamy mass of aluminium and chrome. The sand became a mirror where the water receded, reflecting the softness of the morning sky. The horizon turned a salmon pink as the sun crept into view. Crept into view. Long arms of coral light stretched out along the horizon, where the clouds were beginning to mass from the promised storm front. The air was cold and richly scented with salt spray and seaweed. Within minutes, my stride began to lengthen, and I could feel a mindless rhythm orchestrated all the morning parts. As it turned out, this was the last time I'd have a chance to jog for weeks. Had I but known, I might have enjoyed a little more than I did. Somehow, chapter 3. Somehow I sense, long before I actually laid eyes on the man, that my relationship with Gordon Titus was going to be a source of joy and comfort to either one of us. Since he'd proposed the meeting, I figured my choice were obvious. I could avoid the office, thus postponing our first encounter, or I could comply with his request and get it over with. One of the two, the latter seemed the wiser on the face of it. After all, it was possible the meeting was a mere formality. I didn't want my lack of enthusiasm to be misinterpreted, misinterpreted. Better, I thought, to appear to be cooperative. As my aunt used to say, always keep yourself on the side of the angles. It was only after she died that I began to wonder what that meant. When I go to the office at 9, I put a call through to Darcy Pascoe, the receptionist in the California Fidelity office next door to mine. Hi Darcy, this is Kinsey. I hear Gordon Titus wants to meet me. From what Farah says, the guy's a real prick. Morning, Miss Mulhone. Nice to hear from you, she said in a pleasant sing-song voice. Are you talking? Why are you talking like that? Is he standing right there? That's correct. Oh well, would you ask him what time he wants me to over there? I've got a few minutes now if it works for him. Just one moment, please. She put me on hold long enough to convey the question and elicit a response. She clicked back in. Right now would be fine. I'm so thrilled. I hung up the phone. I can handle this, I thought. All of us are subjected to somebody else's power at some point. So once in a while, you kiss ass. So what? Either you make your peace with that early, or you ended up living your life as a crank and a misfit. As I headed for the door, I passed the wall hung mirror and paused to check my reflection. I looked fine to me. Jeans, turtleneck, no dirt on my face, nothing green between my teeth. I don't wear makeup, so I never have to worry about cracking or smears. I used to cut my hair myself, but I'd been graining out of late, so it was now shoulder length. Just the teeniest bit uneven. Fortunately, all I had to do was cock my head at a slightly angle and straighten right up. And it straightened right up. It was with my head thus tilted that I entered the glass cubicle Cotton Titus was apparently using for his little get acquainted meeting with the staff. Farah's office was located right next to his, and I could see her at her desk, shooting me a profoundly crossed-eyed look. She was wearing a subdued gray business suit with a plain white blouse, her hair tucked back in a bun. Mr. Titus stood up to meet me and we shook hands across the desk. Miss Milhone. Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you, I said. Oh, I'm tired. His grip was appropriately macho, firm and hardy, but not crushing. The contact maintained just long enough to show that his purpose was sincere. At first glance, I have to say he was a pleasant surprise. I pictured dry and gray, someone all tucked in and proper. He was younger than I expected, 42 at most. He was smooth faced, clean shaved, his eyes blue, his hair premature, prematurely gray and stylish cut. Prematurely gray and stylishly cut. Instead of a suit, he wore chinos and a blue Izod shirt. He didn't seem at all taken with me. I could tell from his glance that my professional attire was a bit of a shock. He covered it well, perhaps imagining that I'd come in to assist the charwoman with the floors before work. Have a seat, he said. No smile, no small talk, no social necessities. I sat, he said. We've been taking a look at the report you submitted over the past 6 months. Nice work, he said. I could already sense the but hanging in the air above our head. His eye traveled down the page in front of him. He leafed rapidly through the sieve of note clip in the front of the manila file holder. The implication was that he had data on me going back to the first time I threw up in elementary school. There was a yellow legal pad in front of him on which he scribbled additional note in ink. His handwriting was precise, the letters angular, with an emphasis on downward stroke. Occasionally, there were bits where the pen point had torn through the paper. I could picture his thoughts speeding across the page while his cursive stamped along behind, gouging out unsightly holes. He'd never forgotten how to do formal outline. Topics were laid out with Roman numeral subclauses neatly indented. His mind probably worked that way too, with all the categories as sign, up, front, and all the subordinate subject carefully relegated to the lines below. He closed the folder and set it aside. He turned his attention to me fully. I thought it was time to jump right in and make quick work of it. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but I'm not actually in California Fidelity employee, I said. I work for the company as an independent contractor. His smile was thin. I understand that. However, there are several small issues we'll need to clarify for corporate purposes. I'm sure you can appreciate the fact that in a review of this short, we need to. Of course. He studied the first and second page of his legal pad. I glanced. What is this? Surreptitiously. 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 I glanced surreptitiously at my watch under the guise of adjusting the band. Without looking up, he said, "Have you another appointment?" "I have a claim to investigate. I should be out in the field." He looked up at me. His body was motionless. His blue eyes bored into mine without blinking. He was handsome but blank, so expressionless that I wondered if he had a stroke or an accident that had severed all the muscle in his face. Or accident that had severed all the muscle in his face. Severed, okay. I tried to keep my mien as dead as his. I'm a bottom line kind of person myself. I like to cut straight to the chase. He picked up his pen, checking item 1, line 1 of his list. I'm not clear whom you report to. Perhaps you can fill me in. Oh, Jesus, it varies, I said pleasantly. I'm accountable to Mac for his, but the kids are usually referred by individual claim adjusters. The minute I started speaking, he began to write. I'm an expert, she said modestly, at reading upside down, but he was using shorthand code of his own. I stopped speaking. He stopped taking notes. I said nothing. He looked up at me again. "Excuse me, I missed that. Can you describe the procedure of this?" The file doesn't seem to indicate. Usually I get, or one of the adjusters might bring a case to my attention. I stop in the office 2 or 3 times a week. He managed to write at exactly the rate I spoke. I stopped. His pen came to a halt. "In addition to meeting?" he asked. "Meetings?" I'm assuming you attend the regular scheduled office meeting. Budget, sales? I've never done that. He checked his note, flipping back page or two. A frown formed, but I could have sworn his confusion was pure theatric. "I can't seem to find your 206. Really?" I said. That surprised me. I hadn't the faintest idea what a 206 was, but I thought it should be his responsibility since he brought it up. He passed a form across the desk to me. "Just to refresh your memory," he said. There were lots of slots to be filled in: dates, times, corporate members, a odometer reading, clearly a formal report in which I was supposed to detail every burp and hiccup on the job. I passed the form back to him without comment. I wasn't going to play this game. Screw him. He began to make notes again. He had bent. "I'll have to ask you to supply the carbon form your files so we can bring our files up to date. Drop them off with Miss Pascoe by noon, if you would. We'll set up appointment to go over them later." It's already half an hour. It's page 28. Next time it's going to be page 28. So there. That's all for tonight. Bye bye.